It is so hard to sit here and listen to this. That's one reason I watched the majority of this and didn't actually sit in this room, because I'm sure my faces would have told everything that I was thinking. Is there anyone that finds it odd? Well, can we start here? I'm gonna start with the entire panel. Are the Proud Boys a white supremacist organization? Yes or no? Starting with Ms. Wiley.
It is my view they are.
It depends on how you define it. I have a book.
Okay, never mind.
It
Next.
depends on how you
it's
define it.
It's a yes or no. Proud Boys, how they define themselves. Are they white supremacists, yes or no?
I have not read a description of how they define themselves.
Okay, that's fine.
I'm not on their mailing list, I don't know.
So are you only on the mailing list of...
I'm not like the
supremacists,
SPLC, I don't
or-
fund organizations that I'm in.
Oh, it just seemed like you were saying because you haven't received their mail, you only received the mail of white supremacists. But go ahead, last witness.
No, they're not white supremacists.
And you know what? I do believe that y'all believe that. Let's try another one. Neo-Nazis, Miss Wiley.
Well, yes.
What?
Nazis is in their name. Neo-Nazis, Dr. Swain.
Is the question still about the Proud Boys, or is it about the...
Neo-Nazis.
Neo-Nazi-
We have moved on. Neo-Nazis.
Neo-Nazis are hate groups, and I have a book, 2002,
Okay, thank you so much.
about
So we're
hate
gonna-
groups
so-
that I suggest that you all read.
I'm reclaiming
It's a
my
long
time.
book.
I'm reclaiming my time. Neo-Nazis. Are they white supremacists?
Neo-Nazis, are they white supremacists?
Yes or no?
What's that?
Yes or no?
They're certainly anti-Semitic, which I would join with any member of the Democratic Party. Mr. Nadler earlier was talking about standing up for the Jewish
reclaiming
people.
my time.
I'd be happy
Next.
to do that.
Yes, they're white supremacists.
Woo, thank God. Jesus Christ, I didn't think we were going to get there. Oh my gosh, let me be clear. Proud Boys are freaking white supremacists. Neo-Nazis are too. And this president, who loves to coddle white supremacists, has decided that they should be given checks. The reasons that I pointed to those particular organizations is because you can go and read, I don't know how many articles, as Dr. Swain wants people to read up. I'm going to be clear. I've read my fair share of books. I do have my fair share of degrees. It is clear that neo-Nazis as well as Proud Boys joined in on January 6th. Yet this slush fund that they keep talking about is specifically to give them money. So how dare this majority sit here and try to lecture this organization about money? Now, we're not talking about tax-paying dollars as we are in that slush fund. But you're telling me that $2 billion in the same country that I'm sure some of y'all would struggle with whether or not the enslavement of black people was good or bad. I'm not even gonna go there and ask y'all the question because y'all struggle with defining that these people were white supremacists. But this country still hasn't thought that reparations made sense for black folk in this country. But at the same time, they've decided that people that are in organizations that are absolutely white supremacy organizations should get our tax dollars because they decided to tear apart or attempt to tear apart our democracy. They are being rewarded. These are people that went through our criminal justice system. When people on that side of the aisle claim that they love law and order, they went through it. They either entered pleas of guilty or they were found guilty. And this president, on day one, his priority was not around racism. It was around doing things like letting them go and now putting money in their pockets. We haven't had one hearing on white supremacy. Yet when we look at things like the killing of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, the 9 worshipers who were murdered at the Mother Emanuel AME Church, the 23 people murdered in 2019 during the shooting at Walmart in El Paso, the 10 people murdered during the 2022 shooting at a grocery store in Buffalo, New York. All of these were murdered by white supremacists who were empowered by the Republican Party's racist rhetoric and policies. This is the same party that wants to drag us back to the Jim Crow era. Some say that there aren't poll taxes, and I guess it's because they're not listing the amount of money, but But when you tell somebody that they've got to go and pay for something, say, like a passport that costs over $100 in order to be able to vote, that looks like a poll tax to me. Some of y'all need to read up on your history books, the very same ones that the Republicans have decided that people should not hear about, because you don't want real history taught in our schools because you're afraid that it's going to hurt people's feelings to know that their ancestors were so savage that they would enslave black folk. You don't want them to understand why the 14th Amendment mattered then and it matters today. You don't want them to understand that when they draw these racist lines and tell black folk that they shouldn't have representation in this country, that it is against the Constitution. You want them to be ignorant so that they can sit up here and be your token for your mission.
Expired.
Congressional hearings are usually full of rehearsed talking points, political theater, and carefully worded answers. But this time, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett wasn't letting anyone hide behind vague responses. During a heated exchange on Capitol Hill, Crockett pressed witnesses over one simple issue. Why is it so hard for some people to clearly condemn white supremacy? What followed became one of the most uncomfortable moments of the hearing. As the conversation turned to the Proud Boys, neo-Nazis, and the January 6 attack on the Capitol, witnesses repeatedly struggled to give direct answers. Some dodged the questions entirely. Others tried to redirect the conversation. But Crockett kept pushing, and her frustration was obvious. At one point, she called out what she described as blatant hypocrisy from Republicans who claimed to stand for law and order, while continuing to defend January 6 rioters and minimize the role extremist groups played in the attack. For Crockett, this wasn't just about politics. It was about accountability. She questioned how lawmakers could condemn violence in one breath while making excuses for individuals connected to extremist movements in the next. And she made it clear that refusing to directly address white supremacy only normalizes it further. The hearing quickly escalated beyond January 6. Crockett connected the discussion to a much larger fight happening across America right now: battles over voting rights, racial discrimination, and even the way history is taught in schools. According to Crockett, these issues are all connected. She argued that efforts to erase difficult conversations about race and discrimination from classrooms are part of a broader attempt to ignore America's history instead of confronting it honestly. And that's where the exchange became even more intense. Because while some witnesses attempted to distance themselves from extremist ideologies without explicitly condemning them, Crockett pointed out what she sees as a dangerous pattern in modern politics: the inability or unwillingness to say that white supremacy is wrong without qualifications or excuses. For many watching, the moment felt familiar. Americans have seen similar exchanges before, where public figures hesitate to directly criticize extremist groups, often choosing carefully crafted political language instead of straightforward condemnation. But Crockett wasn't interested in carefully crafted language. She wanted direct answers. And every time the witnesses tried to pivot away from the question, she brought them right back to it. The tension in the room kept building. You could hear interruptions, overlapping voices, and visible frustration from both sides of the aisle. Yet Crockett stayed focused on the same core issue. If lawmakers and public officials cannot clearly condemn extremist ideologies, what message does that send to the country? That question sits at the center of a growing divide in American politics. To some, these hearings are about protecting free speech and preventing government overreach. To others, they're about confronting the rise of extremism and refusing to normalize dangerous rhetoric. Crockett made it clear which side she stands on. She argued that democracy depends on leaders being willing to speak honestly about threats to the country, even when those conversations are politically uncomfortable. And she repeatedly returned to the events of January 6. The attack on the Capitol remains one of the most divisive moments in recent American history. While some continue to describe the rioters as patriots or political prisoners, Crockett rejected that framing entirely. She emphasized that violence against law enforcement officers, attacks on democratic institutions, and connections to extremist groups cannot simply be brushed aside for political convenience. And perhaps the most striking part of the hearing was how simple her central argument actually was. Condemning white supremacy should not be difficult, not complicated, not controversial. And yet, during the hearing, direct answers seemed almost impossible to get. That's the moment many viewers are now talking about online, because regardless of political affiliation, the exchange raised a larger question about where the country is heading, and whether elected officials are willing to confront extremism directly or continue avoiding the conversation altogether. One thing is certain: Jasmine Crockett made sure the issue could not be ignored. And by the end of the hearing, the silence and hesitation from the witnesses may have said more than their answers ever did.